But we're not live. We won't go live. I think what is it? May 28th is the date that I have planned. If somebody drops out, I'll move it up because I know your release is like what, May 1st?
Yeah, May 3rd, but with supply chains, like who knows? You
Oh,
know,
is that potentially an issue?
yeah, for every author, it has been. Yeah, we've all gotten emails that are like, just so you know, your actual release date might not be for a couple weeks after the announced release date. So I'm considering it like a release month, kind of like when like when you're pregnant, if you're smart, you think of it as like a due month instead of a due date, just in case you go late.
I think we should talk about that on the show here in a moment.
Let's do.
I imagine, I know there's some other authors in that situation.
Yep.
I just rescheduled a bunch of these because they're all like, oh, sorry, at the last minute, our shipments got delayed.
There
I
you
haven't talked
go.
to
So
anybody who
neat.
had their books sunk to the bottom of the ocean. So that's,
That's,
that's good. I know that happened to some folks.
oh my gosh, I can't imagine. That would be heartbreaking. Yeah. Well, my point with that was just I'm super flexible. So slap me in wherever it needs to go. If it doesn't matter to me whether it's like right around release date or after. People will find it and find the book when they find it. So,
I know that like there's so much emphasis on these release dates, and for like a practical reason. I understand when I talk to PR people why they do it. I understand, we got to pick a date and we got to get the earlier the sales, the better, especially if they're
yep.
considering doing another run, or if they're considering additional promotion and where
Yeah.
to prioritize it. So all that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like realistically, I'm finding books forever that came out a decade ago, 2 decades ago, and I love them today, right now.
Especially middle grade. Middle grade has this lasting power that other age categories don't always get. So yeah, I think it is all about the momentum around release date, but from my point of view, yeah, it's all flexible. So
It kind of makes, I don't know if it makes that much sense for when they do it for movies, but books, especially not.
yeah,
Because like
yeah,
I'll buy an author's book if I know them or if I'm at their launch event. Because
yep.
that's what I did this weekend. I went to the first launch event post pandemic where I was able to go in person
Oh,
and buy my friend's book and have him sign it and all that good stuff.
yeah,
And so like then I'll buy it right at the release date. But otherwise, if I know a book's out, if I have a hole in my schedule, now is the time. Or more often
yep,
than not,
yep.
I'm wherever my spot on the hold list from the library.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and yeah, a movie is over in 2 hours. You can watch any movie, even if you're not really in the mood for it. But a book, I feel like there's certain books for certain moods. And if the mood doesn't match up, it's not time for that book, even if I really want to read it. So yeah, but like you said, you understand from the PR point of view, you got to pick a date and you got to follow through with the marketing and create some momentum and then move on to the next book. So I understand, but it is enough to drive an author slightly nuts around release date with all of the stuff that happens. And then the weirdest is right after the radio silence. With every book that's come out, I've had to get used to that. Like the big push and all this excitement, and then the book comes out, and like 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, there's nothing. There's nothing else. Like there's just the book's out. We did all the things, and then am I forgotten? Is my book forgotten? Who knows?
I feel like this
Re-
should be the start of the show because I think this is relevant to everybody that's
well,
launching right
that's
now.
great. That's great.
Um, because hi there, esteemed audience, lovely, lovely, happy. Um,
Hello.
so 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, when do you? Because this is your fourth launch, right?
This is my fourth launch. Yeah.
So when do you get some kind of confirmation that hey, my book's out in the world and it's doing great, or I better hurry up and write that next book sooner than I expected?
So for me personally, actually around the time that I turn the book in for copy edits is when I naturally emotionally have removed myself from the world of the book. It's way before the book even comes out and even is being discussed. So and that's because I am a pretty prolific writer and I'm always working on the next thing. And so by the time the book's in copy edits, I've moved on. Like I've emotionally I can't make any more big changes, nor do I need to. So copy edits feel so nitpicky that I don't know, something in my brain is just like, you did it, you're done, you passed the finish line with that one. And it's just your job. Yeah, your job is done. Move on to the next thing. So release time is always weird, like time traveling almost, because I have to like really think about, okay, I have to think about like the last time I really deeply cared about this book as its creator. And like, I have to remember what it felt like to work on it. So for me, that was like about a year ago when we turned it into copy edits. But as far as like, when do you get confirmation? I don't know. Do you ever? Maybe if you win a Newbery, then you're like, oh yeah, this book came out and people liked it. Done. Check. I mean, I still have
to replace that with the dread of, will my next book win another Newbery?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So one thing I've learned about publishing, well, I've learned a lot about publishing, but one thing that keeps coming up for me is that the goalposts are always moving, always. You know, you feel like, oh, as soon as I can get an agent, or as soon as I can get a first draft done, then I'll feel validated, or I'll feel like I'm succeeding, or I'm on my way. And then you cross that line, and then the next thing comes up that you're chasing, which is great. I mean, stagnation isn't, for me anyway, maybe for some people, but it does mean that you can constantly be chasing after some validation that is never really going to happen, because as soon as you cross that, then you're just looking ahead. Like you said, you win the Newbery, and then your next book, you're like, oh no, if this doesn't win the Newbery, then like, what does that mean? But you're very lucky if you win one Newbery in your life. So it's not really realistic to constantly need the same level of validation for every single project and every single book, because eventually, like, there's only so much you can optimize in your life, like, before you're like, okay, I think about this with like step counting. I used to like keep track of my steps every day, because I like numbers. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, one year I did like on average like 12,000 steps a day and felt pretty good, and was like, I could do more than that next year. And then it was like 15,000 steps a day, and then like 18,000 steps a day. And at what point do you go, okay, I can't keep raising the bar for myself every year, or else I'm going to be trying to do 50,000 steps every day, or else I'll feel like a failure. And I don't know, that is kind of how I see book releases, books in general. Just, what are you trying to optimize, and why? I can't even remember what the question originally was, but there's
me either. We're doing great. It's fine.
Okay, good. Good.
The good news is you're on the Middle Grade Ninja podcast.
That's
so
right.
This is the moment.
This is the ultimate validation. Yep. We can take the goalpost down.
Prior to this, when was the first time you felt like, oh, I am an author? It did happen for me. Was it the launch of that first book, or was it before that, after that?
Honestly, probably getting my agent. That would have been August of 2013. A year in which I spent a lot of time on the Middle Grade Ninja website, reading lots of blog posts, because like, I just loved reading stories of people who like people's publishing stories, and you posted a ton of them. And so I was on there a lot. But I got my agent, and it felt like a concrete thing I could tell people, like, hey, I took that first step. Like, and also it felt like the first time somebody else had said yes to me, somebody outside of just like my family telling me like, good job, you can do this. Yeah. So probably when I got my agent. But I think my threshold for validation is probably a lot lower than other people's. It doesn't take much for me.
Well, I know that when I got my agent, people go, that's great. What's a literary agent? So
oh yeah.
It didn't quite cross the line for me.
Oh yeah. But see, then you can like really play up what this means when you're explaining it to non-publishing people. Be like, see, this is the first step. Like, all it takes now is just a book deal. And then, which of course it's much more complex than that. But But yeah, that was the first time, like I said, somebody that I didn't know, a stranger who had no reason to say yes to me just to stroke my ego, had said yes. And so that felt very validating.